Good evening. For Telesur, I'm Sarah Begum in Caracas, Venezuela. Starting tonight in Colombia, the FARC began their unilateral ceasefire on Saturday. But uncertainty marred the truce, which the guerrillas threatened to break if attacked by the army. Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos said at a ceremony that he hoped it would turn into a bilateral ceasefire. The FARC asked him not to stand in the way of the people's desire to be free of bombs and machine guns. Under the ceasefire, the FARC says its fighters will only engage in hostilities if they come under attack first. In Mexico, federal authorities have moved Maria de los Angeles Pineda, considered one of the intellectual authors of the police attack on the Ayotzinapa students in September, from a 60-day house arrest to a maximum security prison. But social organizations and even experts continue to demand a deeper and more transparent investigation into the forcibly disappeared 43 students, 42 of which are still missing. Our correspondent Clayton Conn has more.
2 months have passed since the presumed primary culprits of the Ayotzinapa attack were detained. However, in a short message to the nation, Mexico's president acknowledged the continued widespread social discontent and the demand for justice.
Violence from organized crime once again has hit the country. We have felt indignation, anger and pain, which provoked a legitimate demand for justice. Also, it provoked criticism and demands for greater transparency.
Yet experts question the degree to which the investigation into the case will be made transparent. They wonder the role authorities beyond the municipal level actually played when the 43 students were disappeared in the state of Guerrero.
¿Hasta dónde el ejército mexicano estaría dispuesto a transparentar?
To what point will the Mexican army be willing to make transparent at depth their role in the crucial moments of the attack and detention?
De la ofensiva, la detención.
Families of the victims and social organizations in solidarity say they're convinced that the federal police and army played a substantial role in the students' forced disappearance. They continue to demand that the search for the youth also include military bases.
We know that they, the army, participated just as the municipal police did, or even the federal police.
Y también la Policía Federal.
43, justicia!
In the coming weeks, these families and social organizations will once again launch their own independent search brigades throughout Guerrero so as to find their missing loved ones. Clayton Conn, Telesur, Mexico City.
Thanks to Clayton. In Bolivia, President Evo Morales confirmed that Martin Belaunde, a former congressman and former advisor to President Ollanta Humala, entered the country illegally while being sought for corruption. Morales says he won't be granted asylum in Bolivia. Belaunde is being investigated on charges of conspiracy, money laundering and embezzlement. An Indonesian naval search and rescue ship returned to Surabaya port with debris from the AirAsia plane that disappeared from radar screens on a routine flight a week ago. The ship recovered bodies off the coast of Borneo Island and picked up debris such as seats and other parts of the plane. The plane, carrying 162 passengers, crashed into the sea on December 28. 37 bodies have been recovered and 13 identified. And in the United States, where gun violence remains at alarmingly high levels, there has been no federal gun laws passed since the Sandy Hook massacre. Our correspondent Alexandra Hall has this story.
2 years after the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting, and not one federal law on gun control passed. According to the latest Pew Research poll, 52% of Americans think it's more important to protect the right to own guns than to control who can buy them and who can't.
It's ingrained in the Constitution and ingrained in the people of America, by and large, to have access to pistols and shotguns.
Failed legislation has attempted to limit the purchase of assault weapons or keep guns out of the hands of buyers with a history of mental illness, requirements that for about half of Americans seem reasonable.
You can go out and shoot a shotgun, shoot a couple shots, shoot at a bird or whatever, but to have one that will repeatedly shoot a barrage of bullets, to me, it's selfish.
Divisions over what causes gun violence and what could prevent it has motivated reformists to redirect the conversation about gun control to one of gun safety. But politics could still get in the way.
There's such a strong lobby movement within the NRA and within Congress and private industry. It's a very tough thing to crack through.
Tough to crack through, at least from the federal government's perspective. In the absence of nationwide legislation and following a recent victory in Washington state where voters recently approved universal background checks, advocates say that they may have to rely on state ballot initiatives in order to protect future victims of gun violence. In Washington, I'm Alexandra Hall for Telesur.
And in Germany, demonstrators gathered in Cologne ahead of the city's cathedral switching off its lights in protest against the large-scale anti-Muslim rallies seen in Germany in recent weeks. Pro-immigration protesters gathered to watch the lights go out on the cathedral. German Chancellor Angela Merkel has urged Germans to turn their backs on a growing grassroots movement of anti-Muslim protesters, calling them racist, full of hatred. She said Europe's biggest economy must welcome people fleeing conflict and war. And in Palestine, the government is continuing its push to be recognized internationally. Our correspondent Noor Harazin has more.
Well, the Palestinian government continues their diplomatic efforts in order to join international organizations and institutes. The latest was them asking to join the Interpol. Back in 2011, Palestine wanted to join the Interpol. However, they were only granted an observer status, and now again in 2015 Palestinian officials said that they will be asking to join the Interpol again, and they have already secured 128 votes in favor. And let me also point that Palestine needs only 124 votes in favor to join the Interpol. So maybe in the next few months we will hear the happy news of Palestine finally joining the Interpol.
Thanks to Noor. Greeks have expressed their concern that the German government was trying to alarm Greek voters ahead of a snap general election by dangling the fear of a possible Greek exit from the euro. Many are claiming that it is just fear-mongering after both German Chancellor Angela Merkel and Finance Minister Wolfgang Schäuble now believe the Eurozone has implemented enough reforms since the height of the crisis in 2012 to make a potential Greek exit or Grexit feasible.
I don't believe leaving the euro would be that much of a problem. I think we'd be in the same mess. We're at zero. It can't get any worse. We will try to work and make things better.
The sub-zero temperatures and biting Siberian winds didn't seem to deter people from taking dips into the freezing waters of the Songhua River, which runs through Harbin City in northern China. Over 700 enthusiasts from 49 amateur groups nationwide braved icy waters to compete in a two-day ice swimming competition in Harbin, one of the coldest cities in China. Contestants tried to be the first to make it across the 25-meter pool in temperatures colder than minus 17 degrees Celsius. More on these and other stories on our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Sarah Begum. Have a good evening.